Let's now continue with our lessons learned from the local training conferences and the local conferences. So we now move to two activities that were implemented throughout the project. And I would like to welcome Joan Laranjeiro, Cesar Miranda, Brito Jr., and Camilo Bonilla, who will talk a little bit about these trainings and conferences.
Hello again. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the training programs and the local conferences. Well, more than explaining every detail of what happened, we're hoping to reflect a bit on the innovative characters of these activities and the challenges that we faced in implementing these activities. So, as I mentioned previously, the training programs took place in Brazil, Colombia, and Peru. And the goal was to strengthen the capacity of Latin American institutions to attract students and staff to initiatives and enhance internationalization. The key outcomes was a collaborative exchange of best practices, ideas, and strategies to improve mobility management for students and staff. And the main activities included interactive workshops, case study discussions, networking moments, and so on. Like I mentioned, the goal was to strengthen the capacity of the Latin American institutions in attracting students and staff to mobility initiatives. But besides this, one of the main purposes of the training was to train trainers. So to have in-house trainers that would receive this information and pass it on to their respective institutions, to their colleagues. So the target audience were participants that represented coordinators or mobility officers, people that were working directly with international mobility, that worked with internationalization, short-term study programs, students and staff exchange, faculty mobility, or double degree initiatives. We had 33 trainees. There was a selection criteria, so to participate in these trainings, trainers would have to be fluent in English, have experience in internationalization, in international relations, and be working with international mobility programs. And like I said before, the willingness to share the content further to their respective colleagues and institutions. So the key topics that were addressed were what at this time we had in the catalog of tools as the main, our core topics, that were management of internationalization with the support of technology, internationalization of the curriculum, student mobility, academic and non-academic staff mobility, internationalization, and communication. And the main feedback that we received was that the practical cases and workshops were very appreciated by the hands-on approach, something that the participants really appreciated. And that these activities were effective to enhance their overall understanding and skill development. Also, the network opportunity was also one of the aspects that stood out as very positive, as a very positive outcome of this experience. Now moving on to the local conferences. The goal was to disseminate the project results, strengthen institutional capacities, and foster dialogue on innovative approaches to academic mobility and internationalization in Latin America. So these local conferences took place in PUCP, in Peru, in Pontificia Universidad Javeriana in Colombia, and Universidad de Fortaleza in Brazil. The key activities included keynote speeches, panel discussions, workshops, discussion groups, roundtables, and a whole lot of work. So at Universidad de Fortaleza at Brazil, the local conference held there was entitled IMAT Conference, Best Practices and Internationalization at Unifor. It was organized in September 2025, and the purpose was to present some of the best practices for internationalization at home. And in Colombia, the local conference was Academic Mobility in Times of Change, held in May 2025. The program combined institutional presentations, academic lectures, interactive discussions, a pilot project showcase designed to address the challenges and opportunities of mobilities in today's context. And in Peru, the Global Ed 2025 conference aimed to foster dialogue on the challenges and opportunities for the internationalization of higher education in Peru. This conference was also followed by a workshop on internationalization and mobility that happened on the next day. This workshop provided a space for participants from the Peruvian network of universities, institutions to immerse themselves in and learn about designing policies and processes for students and faculty mobility and academic cooperation. Okay. And now no one better than my colleagues that implemented these activities to talk to you and to reflect. I'm sorry, I'm trying to put the first, yeah, okay. To reflect on these issues, my colleagues Brito Junior, my colleague Camilo Bonillo, and my colleague Cesar. Maybe I can sit there to ask the questions. Yeah, is there a microphone?
So, the first question that I have for you is, what was the most transformative innovation of your local conference? And why do you think it can inspire other Latin American universities? Who wants to start?
Hello, good morning. I'm Brito from the University of Fortaleza, Universidade de Fortaleza, in Brazil, in Ceará. So we took in consideration the work that we had done in the IMAT project since the pilot workshop and with the catalog of tools. So we thought that it could be a good idea to present to our university community the best practice of the University of Fortaleza for the internationalization at home. So I believe that the most transformative thing that we did this year with the local conference was to create a kind of catalog of tools for best practice, but for the University of Fortaleza community. So we created a document, an ongoing document that will be updated for I don't know how many time, but the idea is to this document to be updated with the best practice that we do in the university, because I think that universities in Brazil in general, they have this we can call weakness of not recording their work. So we believe that with this document, we create something that it can perdure during time, and the students, the professors, the researchers can also look at it and maybe create new ideas for the internationalization at the university. So I think it can be a good thing to have this kind of document in every university to create this pool of ideas and events and publications, etc.
So, good morning. I'm Camilo Bonilla from Pontificia Universidad Javeriana, and I prepared the first local conference back in May 2025. Our main idea was to address some ideas and challenges that we're experiencing in Javeriana, but I'm quite sure that it's our ideas and challenges that are also being experienced by some other universities in the Latin American region, of course. The first one was related with the link that should be present between mobility and the scientific diplomacy. Our vice president for research is very interested in this topic, and she gave us some insights on how mobility shouldn't be only the experience of one person, but should help other areas of the university connect and start working, cooperate with several universities and institutions abroad. So, of course, not letting behind the fact that it's an experience of a person, but also being able to connect and to start working together in reaching common objectives as well. Sometimes it's difficult to understand this part, and sometimes students mostly, when they go abroad, they don't understand the opportunity they have to connect. Maybe professors and researchers, for them might be different, because when they go abroad, they usually come with new projects and new possibilities of collaboration and cooperation. So it was actually pretty interesting because we're working on that, as I mentioned, from our Vice Presidency for Research. During the conference, we also addressed like this new trend, if I can call it like that, but it's called this closing borders that some Latin American countries in this context are experiencing right now. For example, in the US, the Anglo-speaking countries as a whole maybe, and also some countries in Europe. We have our students are very interested in going abroad to these countries, to the global north, but sometimes it is difficult for them to travel, to have the visas approved, for example. And one of our professors, he's from Haiti. He now lives in Colombia, and now he's a Colombian citizen as well. He was just letting us know that, of course, it's difficult. He told us about his experience as a migrant. And the idea here is also start considering other options, other mobility options, mostly linked to the global south. I mean, it's not the idea, of course. We need to start working with, every single country in this world. But if it's difficult to migrate, if it's difficult to go abroad for an exchange program or for an academic experience, maybe we should start looking for another link, other countries to work with. And finally, we also talk about the well-being of students abroad. Sometimes we have identified that our students, when they are abroad, they usually handle, or try to handle as well, mental issues. And sometimes they don't find like a proper or a caring hand abroad, and they always are contacting us because they don't know what to do. So we were sharing that day what Javeriana has to offer in this particular field. We have a really proper and really big and important program at our Vice Presidency for Wellbeing, and it was very interesting to see how a lot of things, and mostly after the pandemic, our students are not prepared for this kind of experiences, even though they want to do them. And it was interesting to know a little bit more about that from our director of the master's and PhD degrees in psychology. So it's just about it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cesar Miranda. I work at the Pontifical Catholic University of Peru. And I'm going to tell you about what we did in terms of organizing the local conference at my university. And I'm going to try to talk from two perspectives, the perspective of an organizer of an event and the perspective of someone that works in internationalization. From the perspective of organizing the event, I got into big trouble because I wanted to do a good event and I wanted to have lots of people coming. And for that, well, it's a lot of work. You know, you have to think about details, things like the lanyards and the visuals of the events and everything. And at many points of the organization, I wanted just to escape. But in the end, we managed to offer a nice event. It was attended by many people, and we managed to accomplish what we wanted. In terms of strategic thinking of how to get people coming to the university, we started looking at the Peruvian Network of Universities, which is a network of universities that we have in Peru, and that has an office in our university. So I had a close contact with them in order to involve these universities, to invite them to come and to serve their interests, actually. And we started by asking them, what are you interested in terms of internationalization? We surveyed them, and they told us that they wanted to, for example, know a bit more about Erasmus. They wanted to know about networks of universities abroad. They wanted to know how to get funding, and that helped us to plan the event. They told us what they wanted, and we tried to serve them. So we put together an event that was followed. One of the things that they told us, and most important, was that they didn't want to be in a conference where they had to listen to people talk the whole day. They didn't want to sit there and just listen. They wanted to participate. They wanted to do hands-on things. So that gave me the idea of offering a conference like this one, but at the next day, one workshop where I could have these people that work in internationalization working together and talking and doing and planning things. And for that, we had the help of our great friend, Dr. Luciana Stalivieri, who came to the event. And at the first day in the conference, she offered a keynote like the one she did here, very eye-opening, very provocative. And the second day, he was even more provocative, and she did some dynamics with the attendees, and they had the chance to participate, to think, to reflect, and to produce knowledge during that day. So that was key. We also had Camilo visiting us, and a panel that we organized about how to make Peru attractive destination in terms of academic mobility. And we know that in comparison to Colombia is a much more attractive country in terms of numbers, I would say, because you have more students coming to Colombia. And we invited another friend from Learn Chile to tell us how does Chile sell their country as a destination. We have an interesting panel in which we Peruvian universities learn from them in terms of what they do to attract students. And we had another panel that was more hands-on as well. It was about intercultural abilities. it was quite interesting as well because contrary to what you would believe, being people involved in internationalization, many of us have lots of prejudice, lots of preconceptions about international affairs or other cultures in general. So we had a colleague telling us how, making it obvious for people that were there, how do we as international officers still hold these misconceptions about interculturality? So she asked a bunch of questions and she made it obvious for us that even though we are in this environment, we are not fully prepared for being as intercultural as needed in order to deal with students and staff that come to visit us. So it was quite an interesting experience as an organizer and also as a participant, but it was lots of trouble. And but in the end, it was quite rewarding.
Thank you. I think that looking at the activities that were organized and the trainings, probably the most transformative aspect is how the knowledge and acquired is already being embedded, is that how you say it? In the institutions, and we're witnessing that right now. So I think that's the most transformative aspect. The second question that I had, sorry, I have to check my notes. What key challenges became evident after organizing your local conference, and how will these insights shape your future internationalization and mobility initiatives?
Well, as Cesar said, there's a lot of challenges and situations that we need to resolve by organizing an event. And I think that in the Unifor case, it was the attendance of the audience. So we had a big challenge with that because we created visuals, we published in our social medias, we sent emails, we sent internal communications, we invited all our university community, but yet the attendance was not the expected one that we thought that we would have. But I believe it's that, as Dr. Stalivieri said, we are not yet in the comprehensive internationalization in our university, but I think it is in general as well. The universities, the personnel of the universities are not yet thinking the internationalization has a way of making the university better. They think it as a department yet. So I think this was the most challenging aspect, but at the end, our audience in the event was very good. We had professors, students, administrative staff participating in each activity and really engaging the activity, as well as international students sharing. For example, we had two students from Tunisia, explaining how the medical system there works. So I think for our students, it's a great opportunity to know how this international system works. So yeah, I think the audience was the biggest challenge.
Well, Brito just said what I was about to say as well. For our local conference, I invited the whole community of the university, around, 27,000 people. I mean, I sent the invitation to students, professors, and non-academic staff. And I also invited more than 400 colleagues from universities in all over Colombia. It was, a really hard job to start, looking for each single email for international offices in universities in Colombia to send them the information and the invitation, of course. It was a hybrid event, of course, as well. And at the very end, we only ended up having around 157 registered, colleagues. And at the conference, we received around 80 people. That was about it. So it was, like very hard to get to invite all those people, and the participation wasn't as we expected, of course. In the case of Colombia, I think we have a lot of, this kind of events during the year, and somehow maybe because of that, it's difficult to attract, colleagues to attend this kind of events. For example, last week there were 2 different events here in Colombia from higher education institutions, and from ASCUN, which is the Colombian Association of Universities, and RCI, which is the Colombian Network of Internationalization. They were last week. So last week, this city was filled with colleagues from all over Colombia. So that all depends. But for me, for this conference, that was the biggest issue. The rest of the things, it's hard to organize this kind of events, but we can handle it. But, I don't know, like, attract is not that easy sometimes.
Yes. So knowing that, in our case, and having a different context, because in Peru we don't have a proper network for internationalization, and we don't have a conference for internationalization, and the conference happened here or happened in Europe or different places. So there was an opportunity there to fill this gap, to offer an event that could make people interested in international offices throughout the country, in the different regions, and to come to Lima, the capital, to have a chance to have contact with people like Lucien or Hans de Witt, who we also invited, and to learn more about what's going on in Colombia and in Chile. So that was the biggest challenge, actually, to have people to come. And as I told you at the beginning, there were 2 strategies: to have a target audience, but also this was enhanced by the fact that I also told you as well that there is no conference like that in Peru, so it was easier for us to have people interested in coming. But we also needed to, they had to come to Lima. Lima is where a third of the country lives. It's a big city, and the other universities, the other regions are a bit far. It's quite an effort for them to come to Lima to attend this conference. So we needed to offer not only an interesting event with interesting guests and an interesting program, but also an extra activity so that they had it easier to justify, to get the funds, to pay for the tickets and their hotels and whatever was needed to come to attend the event. So that was challenging as well. But we managed to do it, and in the end it was quite an interesting event. And another thing that I didn't tell you is that since there is a gap in Peru, since there is no internationalization conference, we were thinking about creating an event that in the future may be reproduced, like to have a more editions of the event. So we named the conference, we gave it a name, we gave it a brand. We called it Global Ed 2025, thinking that in the future, I don't know if it's going to be possible because we need funding, in 2026, 2027, or any year in the future, it could be done again. So we gave it a name, we sold it as a yearly event, and it was quite interesting because at the end of the conference and the workshop, people told us that, well, it was quite interesting. We would like to come to events like this in the future. So we have that there going on, and we will try to, I don't know, make the effort of making it happen again. But it all depends on funding, because bringing people to come to visit us and throwing on an event like this needs money. And we're hopeful that after IMAT ends, we have more opportunities with more Erasmus projects or other schemes to have more funding to offer more events like that. But in conclusion, it's like organizing these events have different context and different answers to questions with different factors behind. So in my case, we managed to fill up a gap, and here in Colombia, like, there are more universities but more offers of events. So, you know, you have to play with what you have, and yeah, it was quite interesting and a learning for me.
Thank you. So I think that the main challenge first resumes to numbers, attendance, the numbers, the targets. And I remember that in one of our management meetings in Krakow, Camilo mentioned this, the targets that in spite of all the efforts, we couldn't meet the targets that we had on the proposal. And I said to him, but from how many institutions do you have participants? What type of participants do you have? So sometimes it's not a question of numbers, but the diversity. We shouldn't just evaluate the outcomes based on a mere quantitative approach. That we should always mix a quantitative and qualitative approach. And what's the feedback that you received, the engagement that the participants mentioned? And another challenge that I think was, in this case, in Peru, how to convince people to come. Because, for instance, in our case, in Técnico Lisboa, we organized an International Staff Week that this year had more than 100 participants easily, and we would have more, but we just couldn't receive any more. But in our case, and in case of many European countries, these participants can have funding from the European program, from Erasmus program. This is not the case for Cesar when he organized his conference. So he had, what added value? How am I going to convince people to come here? And I think that was a challenge that was specific to the country, to the institution. Okay. I don't know if anyone in the audience has any other questions that they would like to address, or the online participants.
Online, we don't have any questions. Okay, so thank you so much to Brito, Cesar, and Camilo for sharing this experience. So now we'll have a lunch break. The idea is to return by 2 p.m. when we will have our presentation on the IMAP app. So have a very good lunch, and I'll see you back at 2 p.m.